Hello, this is JJ from Paranormal Talks, paranormaltalks.com. Hey, I'm doing this video. It's not part of the predictive videos, although I'll be pulling from some very highly accurate predictive sources. But I'm doing this video on the coronavirus, the Wuhan virus. And so many people have their hair on fire and they're running in circles and they are panicked. So I want to give you some background about this and about how I believe that this is a cover. This is a distraction. So our powers that be can get things done and get things passed that they normally could not do while people are calm. They can put a lot over on us while we are in a panic state. And it is happening all over in every country. So we'll be getting into that. Hi. As I said, I'm JJ from Paranormal Talks, and we are educational, and we fill the gap of your education that is not covered by our federal and state programming centers, which we call public schools, and universities. We fill that gap with the information you really need to help direct your life most successfully. So let's get into it here. Let's share some screens. This is Paranormal Talks. This is our website. If you want to know about us more, just scroll down and there you be. If you want to know about me, JJ, just click on About Us. Come on. Well, sometimes it has trouble loading. Anyway, click on About Us and you can read about me. Okay? That goes away. Now, I made some predictive videos that you can look at on our YouTube channel. Here's a whole list of them. I clicked on the video section and you can scroll down, and I posted those June 1st of 2019. And those are the basis of these upcoming and updating videos about the various things that are happening in our country in particular that are coming up for us. It is a global sea change that is impacting us, but since we only have so much time, I'm only covering America, that is the U.S., since that's where I live and probably many of you live. Anyway, here are the 6 videos. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Anyway, these 6, okay? There you go. Now, what I'm going to do is give you some background, some perspective, some history. History gives us a perspective of where we are today. If we don't know history, then we don't know where we are today and how we are being manipulated and how this stuff has happened before. That's a perspective. I usually like to start at a high level and then I drill down, I decompose, which is a good information technology, a good IT analysis methodology. And I use that here. Okay, looking at this one, this is from a site, Politico. This is a socialist, communist, left-leaning newsletter magazine, but it's still a good one to look at what's going on. So in crisis, Trump team sees a chance to achieve long-sought goals. Political and economic damage from the Wuhan virus crisis is mounting. Some Trump officials see the moment as an opportunity to finally deliver on promises, including border restrictions, isolating China. That's an interesting way to say it. They're actually cutting off China from interfacing with the United States. In technology, we call this a single point of failure. What is a single point of failure? Well, if we receive 90% of our medicines and our plastics and, like toys and other products and textiles and machined parts and auto parts, and China is feeling sad or upset with us and cuts us off from delivering those items to America, and that's our only source, which is China, 90%, and that is fact. That's called a single point of failure. Where do we get this stuff? Where do we get our medicines? Where do we get our auto parts? Where do we get our plastics, our plastic toys for our children? Okay, but it's interesting, isolating China. So this crisis Never let a serious crisis go to waste, even if it is manufactured. And that's how it's done to us. Well, that's how it's done to us little people. That's how it's done to us cattle. And we are easy to panic, and we are easy to direct in a desired direction that our powers that be like to send us. So this administration is making the most of this crisis, since you never let a serious crisis go to waste. But that's not unusual, because after 9/11, that crisis, George Bush pushed for counterterrorism measures and regime change in Iraq, long sought goals of his aides. That's what it was. And based on faulty evidence of weapons of mass destruction. And because of the 9/11 attack, they passed a thing called the Unpatriot Act, where we now get our crotches groped in the airports by strangers to keep us safe. But they couldn't keep us safe from the takedown and destruction of the Twin Towers, now could they? But they can grope our crotches in the airports to keep us safe, can they not? So George Bush, his administration, used that serious crisis to pass an unpatriotic act, which has now led to the Red Flag Act. Next, after the 2008 global financial crisis, never let a serious crisis go to waste, Barack Hussein Obama, spent his first year in office trying to stabilize the economy. Well, not really. But he deployed massive stimulus programs that included long-sought programs around the environment and infrastructure. He did offshore 80% of our manufacturing, which is now in China, our single point of failure. And Obama's team used this crisis to push a progressive, socialist, communist agenda on healthcare with Obamacare, and reducing auto emissions with his hybrid automobiles, and climate change. So every administration has leveraged these crises. They have not let them go to waste. Okay, and I'm going to give you some background on this. Okay, I want to show you the big picture. Let's stop sharing this. I want to show you where we are in this crisis cycle. This is from the Socrates computer system, the quantum computer system developed by Martin Armstrong, Armstrong Economics. This is called an economic confidence model. This model is 90% accurate, and it has decades of accuracy and decades of a track record, particularly starting in 1989. Okay, do you see these patterns? Each one of these patterns is made up of 6 cycles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where are we right now? We are right here in this cycle, and then it blows out. This is the 6th cycle, and it gets even more exciting. Now, this is economics. This is not business. This is not politics. This is not geotectonic. This is not sports. There's also sports models that show the cycle of sports being popular and not popular. Okay, look at this cycle. Let's look back in history. I want to give you perspective. If you don't know history, you don't know where you are right now. So here, 1981, this was about May of 1981. This is the blowout of the last pattern we finished up. Some of you who are old enough, you remember this 1981 time frame. Okay, so keep this in mind, okay, because I'm going to show you what it looked like economically in our country in 1981, May of 1981. That's when it really started. Remember, right now we are here. We have 1, 2, and then 3 before we finish up this pattern. So it will becoming even more exciting. Let's stop sharing this, and let's go back to some neat articles. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. This is from Investopedia. This is history. And I chose Investopedia. There's many other sites that talk about the 1980s bank failures and savings and loan failures. It was horrendous. There were huge, massive hiring freezes across business, across companies, and massive layoffs. Okay. Rising bank failures in the early 1980s. And in May of 1981, this is what it looked like. according to the data from the FDIC, Division of Research and Statistics, 1,617 commercial and savings banks failed between 1980 and 1994. These failed institutions held roughly 206.2 billion in assets. And then there was also the thrift banks that failed, institutions that mainly take deposits and originate mortgages. And they failed or were resolved between 86 and 95. And I'll go back to that big picture to show you how after 1981, May of 1981, it rippled out and it didn't get cleaned up until really 1995. So those institutions, they lost 519 billion. So between this amount, come here, this amount, billions, and this amount billions, it was about 725 billion. And in 1980, that was real money. Not like it is today, which is kind of pocket change. So the banking crisis of the 80s was therefore a two-headed beast, with one head related to the failure of savings and loans, which represented the bulk of the assets and number of banks, and the other linked to the failure of large commercial banks. Contrast this with bank failure data leading up to the 1980s, which was a pittance. So bank failures eventually reached a post-depression record of 779 in 1988, representing 54 billion. So you see, in the early 1980s, 1981, we were in a depression-like environment financially. And let me show you that again, that big picture. Here we go, 1981. And it didn't get cleaned up until 1994. We didn't really begin to recover from that collapse of the savings and loans and the thrift banks. And here it is. It's the divot within this next pattern, which we are now in. So you see how it goes. Now, this is an economic model. It started here. It started cascading and boom, and man, it goes down, and it was a big cluster mess all this time. Okay, let's get back to it. So I'm giving you a overall view of that, of where we are now. So it's going to be a lot of stuff. Pandemic influenza patterns will be hitting us, as well as economic, but the economic is far, far worse, and that's coming up for us. And when I say isolating China per this article in Politico, isolating China, indeed, China is a single point of failure for America right now. We are in a very vulnerable position. I'm not going to play this audio since I have to figure out how to get rid of the echo when I'm sharing the audio. But coronavirus brings pains to the port. This report is from NBC, and I'm going to turn that off. Okay. And he's talking about that. I know the Long Beach, the Los Angeles area, Long Beach ports. I know how, because I'm from there, and I've seen how these ports are filled with ships from all over the world. And there are certain docks here that are specific for Chinese ships. And it is it's like a massive bus stop, man. These guys just line up all the way out into the ocean to drop their oil, to drop their products. But this reporter is showing how empty these are. Now, this is high level, and this is a trusted source, NBC. Let's look at another one. Now, this video, U.S. shipping ports empty due to coronavirus. And we're going to look at the video, at the visual here. This is a dock worker. She's actually on the docks. Anytime now. It's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. There we go. And I know that this video footage is accurate, is correct, because we used to catch the boat out of right next to these ports, right out of to head over to Catalina Island for the weekend. It was a delightful weekend on that island, but these ports had these containers just filling this whole entire area and stacked way the heck up, 3 stories, 4 stories tall. And this place is empty now. I mean, look at all this space. This is ridiculous. Look, you can see right through here. This should all be blocked up with 4 stories high of these big metal containers. And that's not happening because we've cut off trade. We've cut off the ships docking here at these ports in Long Beach. All right. Okay, let me show you what, now this is history. And I hope this gives you a perspective of what a drop in the bucket and a ridiculous panic we're running in circles about with this Wuhan virus. Now, this is a real virus, 1918, the Spanish flu influenza. This one killed mostly young men in their prime, young men in their 20s and 30s. This Wuhan virus is allegedly killing old people, people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. It is not doing young men and young people in their 20s and 30s. And because this is happening during World War I, this was particularly hit, for some reason, this age bracket. Go figure. Okay, let's scroll down and let me show you the big fat number of this pandemic in the United States, which was all of almost 200,000 nationwide. 200,000 nationwide. That was the pandemic in this country. So read this history so you know where you are now and to help you possibly from running in circles right now in a panic with your hair on fire. Okay, now let's look at the quantum computer system on the ArmstrongEconomics.com website. This has a 90% accuracy rate. Now, this is for perspective again. You see this date, 1990? This is January 1, 1990. This was the end of that 1918 Spanish flu influenza. It burnt itself totally out. It started in about September, October of 1918. So September, October, November, December. So it was a 4-month pandemic that killed about 200,000 young men, 20s and 30s in the United States. And it was gone. It blew itself out. You can see there was a phase transition here. It got worse, 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 worse. It hit its peak January 1, and then it began to fall off. Okay, so this flu virus, actually there have been reports and documented presentations that were posted about this alleged Wuhan virus in November 15th, 2019, before anyone even knew about it. Now, how did they quote, know about it? These officials, these health officials around the world. But anyway, this is the accuracy of this quantum computer system. And I'm not going to show you that presentation that was posted November 15th of 2019 because this video would be too long. Okay, now this is again a report from the quantum computer system. The coronavirus to subside in April. So there's hope, you guys. There is hope. Okay, you can read this article. As it stands now, the Wuhan virus has been approximately 107,000 cases worldwide, with 437 cases in the U.S. as of March 8, 2020. The flu, on the other hand, you know, the regular flu, the flu season, the cold season that begins in September, October of every year, and it goes through the winter, and then it burns itself out naturally in March, April, May. So the flu, on the other hand, is estimated to have reached 1 billion cases worldwide, with 9.3 million to 45 million cases in just the United States, and just the in just America per year. So while the market crash, economics, has been blamed on the Wuhan virus, this is really just an excuse for a market that was ripe for a correction anyway. And the last thing is coronavirus panic. This is a new style to cover your face like that. I guess it's pretty nice for girls because we don't have to mess with makeup. So that's very nice. You just have to fix your hair. Okay, so this is perspective again. Comment. How is this for the pi cycle is how energy moves through a system. If you looked at the other 6 videos I posted in 2019, this would give you a basis, an educational basis on which to build instead of taking time to explain these over and over again in each video. The pi cycle is how energy moves through a system, whether it's economic system, business system, political system, geotectonic system, weather system, etc. So how is this energy moving through the cycle? In 1968, the Hong Kong flu had a 51.6 year cycle. And so from 1968, you add 51.6 years, and that brings us to 2020. So these influenzas do have cycles, and the one that we really need to be concerned about, I guess this is just practice. So practice having your hair on fire, running in circles in a panic, preparing yourself and buying extra food. But the real pandemic will hit us in 2022. So this year, 2020, this is now March of 2020. This is ho-hum. The real one will hit us and peak in March, to be precise, because what good is a prediction unless it's precise, right? So March 14th, 2022, we have a peak in an influenza, which will kill thousands of people in this country in 2022. So what the media does and what the media is doing now is whipping up full-blown panic over this virus, which is reaching a fever pitch in the U.S.A. And while a crisis is in play, our sovereign leaders in our nations can do stuff, can get things passed, can just make things happen and turn them into laws without us noticing, because we're running in circles with our hair on fire, not paying attention. You have to keep your eye on these guys at all times. They're not to be trusted. Anyway, this is just a little photo of this crisis. Oh my God, look, it's a flood. It's a terrible flood. They're up to their waists in this massive flooding water. It is the great flood of the world. Get out your Noah's Ark, okay? And then we have the bigger picture of how this setup really is, where the cameramen are standing on high ground while this news anchor stands in a hole that is full of water. So if you're not aware of how they do things, it is entertaining and it is manipulative, and it does work. So this is just a heads up. It will be hitting us in March 14th of 2022, the real coronavirus. I know you may all forget about this because our memories are short, but I want to give you perspective. Let's stop sharing. Okay, so that is the Wuhan virus report. Wanted to give you some information, some history, some background, some perspective, so you know where you are now and there is hope. This will naturally burn itself out in April, May of 2020. But in the meantime, you have lots of additional stored food in your pantries, which we call forced prepping. And that's good. I mean, it's always good to have extra food. You just never know. So that's a report from Paranormal Talks, paranormaltalks.com. So gird your loins and hold on to your socks, because we are in for a wild ride. This is JJ. Talk to you later. Take care. Bye.